In America, thousands of people can seemingly cause urban riots over a discounted TV, while the police merely watch. This is a festive tradition that we will now examine. 50 unique American customs balance between ritual and anarchy, making you wonder and ask, is this really allowed? The answer is surprising. Yes, it is allowed. Where else on earth is attacking a store not only legal, but also the start of the holiday season? People are ready to trample their neighbors for a 70% discount on a deep fryer. This is not just a shopping trip, but nationally broadcast riots where the police only regulate traffic. On this day of the year, capitalism takes off its mask and admits that it calmly watches people fight over discounted TVs, even if it's a grandmother and her grandson. Now imagine a man carrying a woman upside down on his shoulders, overcoming an obstacle course to the applause of the crowd. This is the North American Wife Carrying Championship. It looks exactly like a daylight kidnapping. But no one calls the police. Why? Because the grand prize is the woman's weight in beer, and 5 times that in cash. Imagine voluntarily becoming human luggage, legs trembling over your partner's head, all for the glory of free alcohol and fun. 3. In what other sport is the main goal to call an ambulance live on air? Nathan's hot dog eating contest is not about sports. It's a 10-minute spectacle of human limits gladly ignored. Eating 76 hot dogs in one go would elsewhere cause an ambulance and stomach pumping. Here it brings the yellow championship belt, made of mustard and legendary status. When does patriotism turn into a cry for help? 4. Forget about supercomputers and satellites. America still trusts the most famous long-term weather forecast from a sleepy groundhog. Every February, a group of adult men in top hats wakes a groundhog named Phil. The global media report on his reaction to his own shadow. This is not just a strange tradition. It is a national conspiracy where everyone pretends to take the weather forecast from an animal seriously. There is only one situation where turning your car into a battering ram is not just legal, but celebrated on public roads. It happens at a county fair. Intentionally smashing into other vehicles is usually aggravated assault. At the fair, it is called a demolition derby, a wholesome family event. The goal of this unique sport is to create a pile of wreckage you can proudly stand on top of. It's a true test of strength. Looking for a new weekend hobby? Try spending thousands on a wool uniform to recreate the nation's bloodiest conflict in a random field. Civil War reenactors experience deafening cannon fire and perform theatrical deaths for an audience sitting on lawn chairs nearby. This hobby blends historical respect with a strange desire to feel what it is like to almost get bayoneted. Nothing says a relaxing weekend like pretending to die from dysentery among strangers on a battlefield. America saw Spain's terrifying running of the bulls and made it absurdly fun in New Orleans with roller derby bulls. In New Orleans, the bulls are roller derby team members wearing horned helmets and wielding plastic wiffle ball bats. Thousands of bats continue to fly in simulated horror. But the real danger is not being horned. The scariest thing is getting a slap on the butt from a person on skates. Would you rather face the horns of a real bull or experience the complete humiliation of such a slap. That's the dilemma that makes you think. A message from a classmate about an incredible business opportunity seems like a scam because it looks and sounds exactly like one. Multi-level marketing is essentially a pyramid scheme disguised as a product. Whether it's leggings, essential oils, or powdered health drinks. The tradition of making money off friendship by getting everyone you know involved in a system where they are destined to fail is an important part of American hustle culture. Multi-level marketing constantly exists on the edge of the law, living in a gray area where the rules are constantly changing. The main rule of any American fare is if you can eat it, you can deep fry it. This is not an offer, but a challenge. Deep-fried oil, soda, and even chewing gum are not a menu, but a declaration of war on nutrition and common sense. This is not just cooking, but a golden brown act of defiance against the laws of nature and dietitians' advice. Try having a barbecue tomorrow with a generator, a couch, and a powerful sound system in the middle of a store parking lot. See how quickly you get arrested for vagrancy. But if you do it before a football game, you are no longer a violator. You become a cultural hero participating in the tradition of tailgating. For a few hours, the asphalt seas turn into temporary cities. With one rule: share beer and never criticize the questionable methods of the grill master. The next tradition causes real fires, explosions, and even plane crashes. The announcement of the baby's gender has gone beyond a simple cake cut and turned into powder explosions resembling fireworks. You're not just expecting a baby. You're filming a Michael Bay movie in your backyard with pyrotechnic effects. The famous announcer's voice shouts, "Sunday, Sunday, Sunday!" meaning you're at a monster truck rally, celebrating the American ideal that bigger is always better, especially when it crushes something smaller. Huge vehicles named Gravedigger and Maximum Destruction jump and flatten rows of cars. In any other place, this would mean millions in property damage and danger to the public. But here, it's not chaos. It is wholesome destruction served with popcorn. Every November, the President of the United States, arguably the world's most powerful person, takes part in a solemn ceremony at the White House. He grants a full, unconditional pardon to a turkey. The turkey, given a name and pampered for weeks, is spared from becoming Thanksgiving dinner. This bizarre and funny political theater shows the leader talking with a farm animal on television. Imagine a 5-year-old child dressed in a full-length evening gown with professional spray tan, false eyelashes, and dental veneers. This is not a surrealist painting, but a toddler beauty pageant. This multi-million-dollar industry judges children on their poise, appearance, and performance, creating a strange and controversial world of toddler beauty contests. In a world where beauty and talent are presented in a way that causes deep concern, toddlers have their portraits and agents. This spectacle resembles evidence in a courtroom. Nevertheless, it airs in prime time on cable channels. In America, convenience is above all, even in the most solemn moments of life. A funeral food truck appears. Yes, it's real. The process involves sticking your whole hand into a dark underwater hole, hoping that a giant catfish will mistake it for food, and then pulling the fish out with your bare hands. Essentially, it's voluntarily becoming bait. It's more like a challenge that went too far than a sport. It's fishing as if it were invented during a serious trial and danger. Before going to the school dance, you have to go through the promposal. It's a tradition where the invitation requires such a gesture that it resembles a performance. Imagine flash mobs in the cafeteria, messages on rented billboards, or even staging a fake arrest involving the local police. This is a public show that you can't refuse, especially if the local police, a rented llama, and a flash mob are already ready to act. If you approached a politician with a suitcase of money to influence their vote, you would be jailed for bribery. But corporations can hire lobbyists, give millions to campaigns, invite politicians on luxury trips, and influence policy behind closed doors. This is the tradition of lobbying, a legal system where powerful interests have a much louder voice than ordinary citizens. This system not only seems illegal, it embodies its essence. Once a year, thousands of American college students participate in a strange social ritual. Known as Rush Week, it is a carefully structured and intense selection process where you must convince a fraternity or sorority to accept you through quick conversations and constant enthusiasm. It's a week of interviews where the only requirement is to be cool. The process resembles a reality show created by sociologists to study peer pressure and conformity. How do you like this business model? On the menu, a 7-pound steak or a huge bowl of chili. If the customer eats it all within an hour, the food is free. If you fail, you pay an inflated price and experience both food and public humiliation. These challenges are a beloved American tradition. This is a business that risks customers' health for a free lunch and a photo on the wall of fame. Greed as a sport. In any other developed country, you pay according to the menu after the meal. In America, a tense, silent negotiation begins. Tipping. This tradition of adding 15 to 25% to the bill is not mandatory by law, but it feels like it should be. This system feels like polite extortion, where a server's ability to pay rent depends on your generosity and fear of social judgment. It's a voluntary tax fueled by anxiety. Have you ever wanted to live in a neighborhood controlled by a tiny private government that fines you for the wrong mailbox color? Welcome to the HOA. These elected boards of neighbors legally control grass length, fence types, and the look of your basketball hoop. This micromanagement seems deeply un-American, yet millions live under these rules. It's a form of feudalism, but with seasonal decoration guidelines instead of lords and vassals. Each year, a temporary city of 80,000 people appears in the Nevada desert for Burning Man, a festival resembling a post-apocalyptic cult. Burning Man features mutant art cars, radical self-expression, and the ritual burning of a giant wooden figure. There is no money, only gifting. This week-long experiment in organized anarchy feels like it should be shut down by the National Guard. But it continues to thrive. Instead, it attracts tech billionaires and CEOs from Silicon Valley. This tradition turns millions of ordinary office workers into obsessed managers of fictional sports teams. It's called fantasy football. Adults spend hundreds of hours analyzing rare player statistics and conduct drafts with a seriousness comparable to a UN summit. They experience real emotional suffering over the performances of employees who don't even work for them. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry turning adults into obsessed analysts. How is it possible to win the most influential position in the world with fewer votes than your opponent? In America, this tradition is called the Electoral College. It's not a physical place, but a strange 200-year-old system that filters the popular vote through a winner-takes-all competition in each state. This system seems to violate the principle of one person, one vote, but it is precisely what determines the president. Created in the 18th century, it every time puts Americans in a complex mathematical and existential dilemma. Every February Sunday, millions of people watch a football game for 3 hours, but the real event begins when, during Super Bowl game breaks, commercials are not just ads. They are 30-second Hollywood blockbusters with huge budgets. Each commercial costs more than most independent films, and people do not skip them, but watch, evaluate, and discuss them for several days in a row. In America, there is a deep tradition, driving 6 hours into the wilderness for something completely pointless. It is a pilgrimage to roadside attractions. The world's largest ball of twine, the biggest frying pan, the barbed wire museum. We build monuments to the mundane, celebrating not beauty or history, but solely the scale of the object. It is a confirmation of the idea that if something is big enough, it doesn't necessarily have to be good. In America, there is a tradition for young adults, suspiciously resembling a financial trap, taking out a student loan. An 18-year-old who cannot legally buy beer signs a debt contract comparable to a small mortgage. This is the only major consumer debt most young people face at the very start of adulthood. Debt that is practically impossible to discharge in bankruptcy is the only product you are encouraged to buy without knowing the final price. This debt haunts you longer than most marriages. The moment you enter an all-you-can-eat restaurant, the usual rules of portion size and personal dignity disappear. This is a unique American space. Here, you can pile your plate up to 3 feet high with a mix of shrimp, pasta, and jelly. It's not just a meal, but a strategic move to get your money's worth. This is a business model built on challenge. Turning simple food into a personal battle with the restaurant's profit is what happens here. Once a year, American high schools cancel all fashion and common sense rules for a week called Spirit Week. Teenagers voluntarily come to school in pajamas, ridiculous clothes, or dressed as tasteless tourists. It's a strange but organized ritual of mandatory fun. The goal is to foster school pride through collective absurdity. The question arises, is this for the students or a cruel experiment? Look at the map of electoral districts in the USA. The shapes of the districts resemble ink blots or crazy salamanders. This is not bad cartography, but a political tradition. This is called gerrymandering, a legal process of creating strange districts to give an advantage to one party. It's like cheating that changes the rules of the game in advance. Politicians choose voters, not voters choose politicians. This distorts the democratic process and undermines the integrity of elections. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You can't sleep and turn on the TV. There, a host with a dazzling smile showcases a product for a problem you didn't know about. This is info marketing, a 30-minute masterpiece of manipulative marketing with black and white shots of failures and the phrase, "But that's not all." This is not just advertising, but a psychological operation to make you buy a vegetable slicer that you'll use exactly once. A typical 16th birthday is cake and friends. The American Sweet 16 party is a much bigger event with special traditions. In some countries, celebrating a teenager's birthday has become a real coronation. They rent ballrooms, order multi-tiered cakes more expensive than a car, and give new luxury cars as gifts. It's more like the finale of a high-budget reality show than an ordinary birthday. Teenagers learn that love is measured by the cost of renting a hall and gifts. Every evening in Austin, Texas, a spectacle unfolds that resembles a scene from a Batman movie. About 1.5 million bats fly out from under the Congress Avenue Bridge. These bats cover the twilight sky, turning an ordinary evening into a biological spectacle. Elsewhere, this might seem like a biblical plague. In Austin, it has become a beloved tourist tradition. Hundreds of people gather on the bridge and boats below, applauding the appearance of a huge swarm of bats. This spectacle of nature's horror has turned into a night festival that attracts many spectators and gives them a unique experience. In the American judicial system, there is an unusual tradition. 12 citizens are randomly selected, placed in a room, and given the power to decide a person's fate. This is called a jury. One moment you are an ordinary person, for example, a dental hygienist, and the next, a participant in an important process that affects someone else's life. Lunch break. The next moment you are weighing evidence in a serious criminal case. This is a huge responsibility for people without legal education. This is the cornerstone of democracy, suspiciously resembling a high-stakes lottery, but where the outcome destroys someone's life rather than making you a millionaire. At any major American sporting event, there comes a moment when the game stops for something much more important. It's the launch of free clothing into the stands from a cannon. The t-shirt cannon is a powerful pneumatic weapon designed to launch tightly rolled clothing at dangerous speeds toward a screaming crowd. It is the only permissible form of shooting at a crowd, all for the glory of catching a free, large-sized sponsor logo t-shirt. A baby shower should be a kind party celebrating the upcoming birth. In practice, it is a strange, pastel ritual of dedication. Guests are forced to play games that seem invented in a feverish dream. For example, sniffing melted chocolates in a diaper to guess the brand, or tasting unmarked jars of puree. It's a tradition that seems both strange and amusing. It feels less like a celebration and more like a series of strange, slightly humiliating trials before you're allowed into the parents' club. Imagine a party where the main event is the silent, mutual judgment of all classmates. That is, a school reunion, a tradition of a real social audit where successes, failures, weight gain, and thinning hair are put on public display. An evening filled with nostalgia, quiet despair, and the agonizing question, did I do better than that guy? This is a sad scoreboard where, in the end, everyone turns out to be a loser. Before the start of a professional baseball game, a strange ritual is often performed. The famous first pitch. A well-known actor or musician, usually with the grace of a newborn giraffe, is given the ball and asked to throw it to the catcher. Most often, the throw is comically bad, and the ball sadly rolls toward the mound. This is a moment of forced celebrity worship that seems completely unrelated to sports. In many cultures, asking the waiter to pack leftover food is a common practice. In America, it is customary to take leftovers from a restaurant. This is called a doggy bag. Portions are so large that almost no one finishes everything at once. Restaurants have special systems for packing leftovers. This is a quiet acknowledgement that the food is too abundant, but it is still served to guests. Every morning in American schools, millions of children stand up, place their hand over their heart, and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to the national flag. This tradition is meant to foster patriotism, but the sight of children reciting the pledge in unison seems authoritarian for a country that values freedom of thought. The daily ritual resembles a scene from a dystopian movie rather than an ordinary day in a modern democracy. In America, there are not just school dances, but entire week-long festivals called homecoming. As part of this celebration, there is a parade featuring teenagers on decorated floats, as well as an important football game and the election of a king and queen. The king and queen are chosen from among the students. It is a strange little monarchy based on popularity, a tradition preparing teenagers for adult social skills and conditional hierarchies. The yard sale is a beloved weekend tradition in America. People put items they are too lazy to throw away on the lawn and invite strangers to bargain. It's a temporary, unregulated flea market on your own driveway. You can sell a broken lamp, an old VHS, and questionable clothing as a cultural event. You're at a fast food restaurant. You've ordered food that already contains the daily calorie intake. The cashier asks a uniquely American question. Do you want to upsize? It's a tradition to pay a small amount to make an already huge portion horrifically bigger. It's a symbol of the national belief that excess is a virtue. This offer is not just a deal, but a challenge that feels like you need to prove your readiness for excess in eating. There is a strange ritual when an airplane lands safely after a routine flight. Some passengers start clapping for the pilots as if they witnessed a miracle. This applause is a lovely gesture, but seems absurd. Do people cheer when their Uber makes a left turn without incident? The contrast is striking. In a country that celebrates rugged individualism, there is pressure to conform to one aesthetic: the perfect, green, manicured lawn. This consumes weekends and resources. Maintaining these lawns costs billions in chemicals and equipment. It uses astonishing amounts of water to keep a sterile, weed-free carpet of non-native grass. It becomes a quiet, suburban arms race for horticultural dominance. The length of your neighbor's grass is seen as a reflection of their moral character. Every autumn, we gladly buy a blend of cinnamon and nutmeg, succumbing to a deeply rooted seasonal custom. It is a culinary cult that we all willingly join every year. Filing tax returns in America is a notoriously complicated and stressful tradition. But there is a secret. It doesn't have to be that way. Many companies spend millions lobbying to keep this complexity. Starting in late August, a single flavor profile takes over the American market. These companies block attempts to create a free and simple government tax filing system to profit from your anxiety. It is a tradition to pay for the complication of civic debt. Every week, American corporations give their employees a wonderful break from the business dress code. This is called Casual Friday. On this day, the strict dress code is relaxed enough to allow wearing jeans or a more comfortable shirt. Physical comfort is presented as a special pleasure that must be earned. This strange ritual presents basic human comfort not as a right, but as a weekly temporary privilege granted from above. We reviewed 49 traditions, and only the grand finale remains. But before we move on to number 50, it's time to deliver the final verdict. In our opinion, the award for the tradition that seems illegal goes to lobbying. There are strong contenders, from the chaos of Black Friday to the systemic absurdity of the Electoral College, but nothing represents such a perfectly legal, institutionalized bribery mechanism. It is a quiet, foundational tradition that allows powerful interests to create their own rules. Lobbying doesn't just seem illegal. It is the basic code of many other problems. Do you agree with our verdict, or did another point deserve the dubious honor? Write in the comments what you think. And now, to our final number, 50. Thanksgiving. It is the highest American tradition, a holiday that is a beautiful, chaotic, and deeply contradictory masterpiece. A day dedicated to gratitude. We celebrate it by overeating to physical discomfort and watching big men give each other concussions during a football game. We celebrate a heavily edited historical feast of peace and friendship, only to then use it. Black Friday is a holiday that turns into a full-contact fight for goods just hours after Thanksgiving. It reflects the nation's love for food, family, and barely contained violence. This was our overview of 50 American traditions balancing between freedom and madness. From strange food rituals to political systems resembling a bad joke. These customs weave the strangest, most amazing, and disturbing threads into the national fabric. Which of them will future generations consider utterly insane? Write in the comments which tradition you consider the craziest. If you enjoyed this journey, subscribe and click the bell. The next episode is coming soon.